Welcome back, everyone, as we get into tonight's discussion. We're going to be talking about why are people destroying flock cameras. This is basically going to be a technology and privacy discussion. And so as we go through this, I'm going to post some information up on the screen so that we all can see, we all can get a better understanding about what's going on. So we'll most definitely freestyle the conversation, but most importantly, if you get anything out of this, I want you to understand that tonight isn't about encouraging vandalism by any means at all. Definitely not about that. Definitely not condoning that. We definitely do not want to get into that or cause anyone to go out and cause any damage to anything. So we definitely have to make sure to get that understanding out of the way. And tonight's conversation is going to be more about having a respectful discussion. All right. Now, as we get into this and you got that understanding out of the way, we're not celebrating. We are not celebrating people destroying property by any means, but it's definitely about understanding why we're seeing this kind of public reaction. I'm sure many of you have seen flock cameras, Axion cameras, Gander cameras in your particular area. We're going to go over a little bit of those today, check out a couple of videos, at least a video as well. But technology is consistently advancing, but public trust does not always advance at the same pace. So let's take a look at the technology. Let's take a look at the information. We'll discuss the privacy concerns and why this conversation most definitely matters here. Now, the videos that are surfacing up is basically showing people online covering cameras with garbage bags, damaging flock cameras in that regard. But the question I want you to keep in mind is, why are ordinary citizens becoming this frustrated? So let's take a look at the video and then we'll come in and out with our commentary. But let's most definitely check this out. And then we'll go from there and see what we got going on from this point here. All right. So let's go ahead and check this out, and then we'll come in and out with our commentary here.
You may have recently seen cameras that look like this, or this, or this. These may seem similar to traditional security cameras or radars, but they're much more powerful. The most well-known brand of these new cameras is Flock. And within the last 14 months, the amount of these cameras across the
All right, in this site that he's pulling up right here, the person that's doing this video, and this is from a Curiosity Corner. I just basically try to find a video online that had a little bit much more of an explanation on it so that we all can get a better understanding of this. But I want you to be able to see what's going on here and everything, okay? So definitely keep that in mind as we're going through. It's going to be more of what they have going on here. But this is dflock.com. You can go there, check out where potential flock cameras are. And so it basically looks like a site that is about people who don't necessarily agree with the initiative of flock, but we definitely want to be able to check like bits and pieces of that out too, just for our commentary here.
Country has doubled to now over 100,000.
And these things literally have the capability to track and store your faces, your whereabouts.
And it's like if you were to build a graph of that sheet, and plot it to a map, now it's as if you've had a GPS on your car for an entire month.
These cameras track.
And see, for an entire month, 30 days is what their policy states here. But when you look at the information from Flock, and I want to make sure to be very, very clear about this, from the Flock site itself, when you're looking at, especially with any site, looking at their privacy policy and their license plate reader policy, the LPR policy that's on their site that was last updated as June the 30th, 2026 at the time of this video here, you're going to see a lot of information of what the camera basically captures. And the camera basically captures license plate imagery is what we know. It also has the vehicle image, and you also see the date and time and camera location as well. And the vehicle characteristics, the color, the make, model of the car. And when you go down through here and look at the queries of the LPR system and how they're stored, and for auditing purposes, per se, for Flock, according to their policy, it looks at the username, date, time, purpose of query, and license plate, and other elements used to query the system. But the most important piece that I want to focus in on around here is with this Flock situation here, I want you to pay very, very close attention to what we have down here on the bottom. And before I get to that, with any kind of technical documentations, most of the time you'll find official custodians here, and this guy most likely a technology professional that you can probably reach out to for more questions if you so have them. But I want you to pay attention to this section down here. The images stored in the system are collected from areas of visible to the public where there is no reasonable expectation of privacy. No reasonable expectation of privacy. So they're letting you know where these cameras are visible at, there is no expectation of privacy. Now, what these cameras do, supposedly, as I said, record vehicle information, search databases to see if there's anything wrong, help with investigations, okay? Now, this doesn't say what they do not do. But where do we draw the line in terms of public safety? There talks about the privacy, the transparency, the accountability, and the oversight behind this. But let's jump back over to the video, and then let's see what else that they have to say about this, and we'll see if we can probably make a little ways through before we jump back to the other piece here with the other images that I have for you all.
License plates and store digital mappings of people's movements. Police can then search that data for 30 days. They also use AI to make note of various vehicle features like scratches and dents. So now an underworld is forming. Across America, people are...
Now, the interesting thing, people destroying property, definitely don't agree with it. But however, this is what is going on, the civil unrest as it comes to these particular cameras. This is what they're having to deal with. And we don't even know the true cost of what it costs to even install these, nor have I seen people or a technician install these ever. But apparently they plan ahead of time to figure out where they're going to install these cameras at. But you definitely have to be careful out there, people. I'm sure these cameras are recording everything. I wouldn't be surprised if they had not already caught the people's face on the cameras. Well, let's see what else they're talking about here.
destroying and vandalizing Flock cameras. This is an insight into that world.
I wanted to do something that I could put in a video that would bring awareness to these Flock cameras, but I also understood that there might be serious consequences if I did actual serious damage to these cameras. So I was thinking about what I might want to do, and the night before, my friend sent me a video of another town where residents of the town had put trash bags.
So it looks like people are putting trash bags over the cameras. And I've seen a lot of that go on with all these Flock cameras. And that's not a good thing. That's definitely not a good thing. Not that it's hurting the camera, but definitely something that we don't need to be doing.
Over the cameras. I don't know if they had done it after the city had voted to remove the cameras and they were just covering them up until they were removed, or they were covering them up before there was any vote or anyone had decided to take them away. Anyway, that's how I got the idea. So I went and got some trash bags, and there were dozens of Flock cameras just within a few blocks of where I live. So I took those trash bags and went to...
And one thing that this person that's doing this probably may know, these cameras are all interconnected. So if they see you walk past the camera from the front, you would think the cameras would definitely log that and know exactly who this is, or those alarms are probably going off at dispatched. But we'll hear more of these when it picks up on the news, if it even makes the news.
Couple and put the bag over, which allowed me to communicate a message here. I'm not damaging them. Local police are able to take the trash bags off pretty easily, but here I am covering them, which may or may not render them useless. But if it does render them useless, what is the use that they are being used for? That's the big question, because it's not just flock cameras.
So what I'm talking about here is as it relates to public places, and I'm going to show you an infographic here in a moment with the different types of the 4 domains of privacy, because people always say expectations of privacy, their right to privacy, but there are 4 specific domains of privacy that I definitely want to go over as well. But the fact that these are so close to residential neighborhoods like this, where people live outside of apartment complexes, you're going to see which part of the privacy domain relates to this specific part of right here, because this is a whole nother different level. Because who's to say there's kids out playing, or there's somebody who can be sitting out in the backyard and want to have that expectation of privacy at home in their domain. They wouldn't want a camera looking at them. But you see that they're being installed as well close to living areas.
The way I think about this is, let's fast forward 10 years into the future. If we let this go unchecked and we continue down this path, what does that world look like? I mean, you look at just...
This is very interesting. Now keep in mind, this is a lot of data. This is a lot of data that's being collected. And we talked about that in the other thing that I showed you. If the public and if the people trust the system, technology gets adopted. If they don't, this public backlash is going to continue to grow. But not very many people know these cameras exist. I've asked people, do they know what these cameras are? Some people have said they had no idea what these were. They just saw some black, camera looking thing on a pole with a solar panel on it, but they didn't know that it was recording license plates. Some people honestly don't know. But what data do they collect and what data do they not collect? Because nowhere in that documentation that I showed you did it say what they did not collect. It told you what they do. And that's what you have to be concerned about looking into this, because they were very, very clear. Okay. And this data is stored briefly on camera, then transferred into AWS government cloud. And so if you're not familiar with that AWS global cloud, if you look at the AWS website, if you're in the tech space, probably use AWS or any other cloud platform. AWS has regions where data is stored depending on where your physical location is. So if you're a business and you use the cloud, you can pick a location that's close to you. And of course, across the top, you see which areas there as far as the continent location where they are. But then when you look at the geographic regions, when they said in the documentation there for flock, when you look on this, it tells you that the data was going to be in the government or gov cloud. And that was down in here on the dock under, it's going to be around the data retention part here. Let's see if we can pull that back up here. Yep, we're right here. So if you look a little bit right under the data retention, you see AWS government cloud right here. And that's what they're talking about, is right here with the Gov cloud, the AWS Gov cloud, which is going to be in the US West. So the data, even though this company was founded by I believe in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. The data is stored in AWS GovCloud, which makes sense because that means police departments and law enforcement and the government type of data or storage has this type of their data stored here. And there's 3 availability zones there, and they've been there since 2011. So you can see that here on the particular map itself of US East West. And AWS is what powers a whole lot of stuff. Amazon Web Services, for those of you who may not know. But let's get back to the video, and then let's see what else we got here.
How many cameras have been installed in the past year? You can kind of drag your finger on the DFLOC map and see the number of cameras across the nation. Feels like it's growing exponentially. So from what we're seeing right now, I can conceive of a world in 10 years where there's one of these on every single corner, and I can't leave my house without a corporation knowing exactly where I am and where I'm going, and I definitely don't want to live in a world like that. It's tough because it feels like this is where we're headed anyway, right? It feels like Amazon's putting camera glasses on all their drivers, and some companies gonna have drones that are delivering things to our backyard with cameras on them, and our phones that we're carrying.
Now, when they're in public spaces like department store parking lots, that's a whole nother different ballpark, and that can definitely be up for debate. I think most people will probably be on the fence about that, because if they go to the store, probably may want to be protected in that regard. But close to home residence where people are, probably not likely. I just can't see people really wanting them like that close to home. But when I just showed you the AWS government cloud, it tells you, kind of gives you a little bit of a ballpark of who likely probably has access to these. And these are reasonable questions that the public should most definitely be asking for this, because we need these transparencies. And these transparencies could be happening, possibly, hopefully, in the town hall meetings. Yeah, so if you're not into local politics, you should definitely be checking out your local meetings that you may have for your city, your town, and start to ask the questions. Look and see if there's any policies around there. What do they say in the public meetings? Maybe they can ask you truly, because I've heard in another video that the police department said that the local law enforcement in local cities have the ability, or they're able to see the information that is not shared with anyone else. But we do know that the information definitely goes back to AWS Gov Cloud. But those audit logs will tell you exactly who has access to that data, which the public is likely not going to see any kind of audit logs behind that. It's going to be people more on the technical side who are working within that organization, not only for FLOC, but also probably for the police departments as well. And of course, different people have different access controls behind there. But the people in the communities need to know if these cameras are going to be installed in their homes, they have to be aware that they are there. So let's see what they're going to finish up and talk about here.
Already log a map of what we're doing and where we're going and what we're saying, so it feels like we're already there, and I don't know exactly what that solution is going to be, but I know that this is something that we should be talking about as a nation.
But some people are taking things a step further.
When it comes to block cameras, I just straight up destroy them. I get rid of them. I don't leave them up. I don't leave any chance for...
All right, so doing that kind of stuff like that, they're just going to start taking people to jail. I mean, that's not necessary. Okay. It's definitely not necessary. So definitely not encouraging anyone to go out and do this and destroy somebody else's property. But this shows you the type of backlash that the public is doing, because they're not happy with these cameras being installed.
Them to pull up and just take the trash bag off or uncover them. I take them with me and I'll completely dismantle them and then dispose of the parts individually in different locations, so then they have to spend the money, spend the resources to get a new one. Obviously, what I'm doing is not the best way of going about doing it. Instead, get a lawyer, go to city council meetings, bring these.
So he's destroying the cameras, but then he's telling the public to go to the city council meetings, which is what I was just talking about. Definitely, people, don't go out and destroy these cameras or property. Go to the city council meetings and talk to the people. Get it on the public record, because you got to know, once these cameras are destroyed, they probably got hundreds and thousands of these in stock in a warehouse, and they're just going to put these right back out. Okay? Destroying them is not going to solve any problem. That's just going to make people go back out and just get them like reinstalled. So don't do what he's doing, okay?
Up and tell your city you don't like them, and I guarantee you people will agree with you, and then you can get them removed peacefully and correctly. But I want immediate action, so I'm just doing it myself. I also just like breaking things, so I figured this would be the one thing I could get away.
And the crazy thing is, there's cars driving by, and you would think somebody would probably stop and say something to him. Probably not. But I'm willing to bet dispatch at the police department, I'm willing to bet they saw exactly what was going on, because these things are cellular enabled. So they got to be dialing something. If something comes apart, they got to be dialing something out to figure out where the location is and likely what's going on.
With breaking, that everyone would be in agreement is cool. Not cool, but like we're cool with it happening.
What are you concerned about?
My biggest thing is not so much the privacy, it's just the fact that they're putting these up to try to prevent future crimes from happening, which is crazy. Once they have this system in place, it's only a matter of times before they start changing what the rules are or what constitutes as a crime. And then they can just pick you up off the street for doing literally whatever. And they've got this whole system in place to...
So people were concerned if ICE, in the increase of their proximity, is in any correlation with the number of cameras that is installed. So are these cameras making the communities safer? Like, what is the data behind that? And what level of surveillance would you deem as acceptable? So definitely keep like this in mind.
Find you and track you. I don't like that. I don't like that.
The times where policing and surveillance was at an all-time high was literally during the Holocaust, when they were trying to let genocide slide. There was no privacy. If a police officer wanted to enter your home and completely search with no warrant, enter your home, interview everyone in the home with no warrant, as if they're investigating a murder, was when they were committing genocide. That's what it required. So you could imagine if we're getting to a point where we have to watch the entire country.
And this is what I was talking about earlier, and I showed this in a previous video. At the police departments and the locations where the dispatch is, for every camera, or just about every camera, and I'm sure they can probably rotate this on the screens, that someone there has the opportunity to see the cameras in action, and they're watching everything. And it's no different than somebody sitting in a department store looking at all the cameras on the screen, or a security guard sitting in a manufacturing facility looking at the screens. But if you remember War of the Worlds with Ice Cube in there, remember how he was watching everything? He was able to help his kids without leaving the office space. And I always say that movies precede what's about to get ready to happen. So you look at my favorite, the one I like to mention, with the tech stuff, iRobot, War of the Worlds. Those movies show the preliminary portion of what is to come. They've been showing it for a while. You're just now catching up to it.
From camera, that's just step one. First off, you give them an inch, they take a mile. It's where are we heading from this, especially when there's already genocides being covered up across the planet right now without these level of cameras. That's my bigger conspiracy, is that they're trying to plot some next level of evil, and they're going to need these cameras for. I would say another argument is we already have a lot of data. We have cameras on us all.
I've said this before. Cameras on phones. I remember when cell phones didn't have cameras on them, but because of people like to record everything that they do, publish everything that they like to talk about online, it's connected. All the analytics is there. So just as well as the flock cameras are on the pole, the cameras are in your pocket. You don't know when the cameras are on and off. And different people have debated conspiracy-wise whether or not cameras are still recording when they're in your pocket or held or placed down on the table, or you have this here. But the cameras on your phone, are they an extension of what you see here? Because we know that the ALPR cameras from back in the 90s that was on the interstate recording the vehicles coming down and showing on the recording the cars, those were the first time that we've seen those. Flock is not new. It's just much more technologically advanced. It has AI embedded in it, and they're beginning to be set up everywhere. Because remember what I said, safety and surveillance are so close to one another that it's so hard to differentiate the two because you don't know when the lines are going to be crossed. But let's go ahead and continue and see what he's going to finish up saying here.
All the time, I don't think we need these additional cameras. There's already enough data to collect. The thing is, for these flock cameras, you don't have to commit as high as a crime for them to tap into these cameras. You could just be speeding or suspicious. Versus right now, they could access my location right now, my camera right now, my microphone right now. They've been tapping phones for the last.
I mean, if anything's connected online, I mean, of course, people are going to be able to see it from anywhere. I mean, just like the cell phone in your pocket, when you're using your phone, of course, it's going to go to the closest cell phone tower. The moment that your call breaks is when you're in between cell phone towers. So they're catching this. It's not anything new.
A few decades. But that's if I'm committing some kind of high-level drug operation or a series of murders. They can tap into these iPhones. They can read all of my messages if they wanted. They would just need a warrant for that. That's the thing. Okay, I'm gonna bridge the entire thing. We're getting into a society where they can conduct warrantless searches, and that's insanely corrupt and scary, and we need to stay away from that.
It's a family crisis that's unfolding in real time. A mother is patting her 10-month-old baby boy on the back after he starts choking on a piece of pancake. We kind of hit on.
All right. So now that we see that, let's get into the actual document.
This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
That I was talking about. And on the document that I was referring to is when you look at the infographic itself, people always say they have an expectation for privacy. But what they don't understand, what the general public may have a hard time understanding, is they may not have even known that there are actually 4 domains to privacy. And in those individual privacy core domains, you have territorial privacy, you have informational privacy, you have communication privacy, and bodily privacy. And underneath each one, you have your territorial privacy, which would be your physical spaces, such as like your home residence, your personal property, your car, your private vehicles. Those are things that people have within their physical space, maybe like their address, their home. People expect when they are at home, inside their home, they have the expectation of privacy. However, when you have technological devices like your Amazon Echoes, your Google Minis, or different things like that are interconnected to the internet, if they have an always on speaker, do you still have that expectation of territorial privacy? Probably, likely not, just because of the nature of how we have technology so interconnected with things. And the same is for vehicles as well. Vehicles now have cameras embedded into them. So when people talk about the expectation of privacy and they're talking about these flock cameras, more than likely they're probably talking about the territorial privacy portion of there. So what we're moving into is when the flock cameras are now on the corners or now on the block, what you have is now the informational privacy, because it's creating a digital footprint of what is going on out here. So the digital footprint that you have, number one, online activity in your history. If you wonder why different things show up for you to go shopping for, probably because you likely either search for or your phone probably listened to it and it's beginning to record that information. Financial records, personal identifiers. This is more of what's on your computer or your phone or your tablet that you have. And this all right here ties into this artificial intelligence. It also ties into this flock information because you have communication privacy. And people expect that their messages remain private unless they've been subpoenaed by a court or the carrier's been subpoenaed to get that information. You have phone calls, emails, encrypted data to transfers. This is all beginning to tie in, people. And this is just a basic infographic just to kind of show you how this, kind of works here. But then the bodily privacy is much more of your biometrics. So your physical body in a person, meaning somebody cannot invade your space. People say you're invading my privacy. You're getting too close. Your DNA, your genetic information, your genetic makeup, your biometric data like your face. So the flock cameras see you driving by, walking by, they scan your face. That will be bodily privacy in terms of face or the gait. So when you now look at the privacy perspective and you look at the information as it relates to the flock cameras, now you know, okay, which part of which one of these privacy domains do it infiltrate. And to me, it looks to go across all four because here's why they're thinking this. Territorial wise, they're being placed close to home, so they're able to see down residential areas. The informational aspect is a digital footprint of when you have your phone. Do these cameras pick up any of the Bluetooth information off your devices? Then that basically, if you're on your device and you're sending text messages and stuff, do any of your private messages get infiltrated or phone calls or encrypted data? Is that able to read any of that information? And then the bodily privacy part is the biometric makeup because it's doing the scanning. So as you look more and more into the flock information, make sure that you understand that in today's technology with the license plate readers, it's what's going on today. The AI analytics is going on tomorrow. And then these ALPR cameras, the flock cameras, are interconnected with traffic cameras and traffic systems and stuff like that. So government has access, of course, to that. Then now you have more and more newer vehicles these vehicles now have so many different technological advancements in it that now the vehicles are able to connect with other vehicles. So you got a vehicle to infrastructure communication happening there, and you already got autonomous vehicles driving around. So the questions that you definitely should have in mind should be about the privacy aspect and how these cameras, are they infiltrating or begin to infiltrate one of these type of privacy core domains that I'm talking about here. But what level of surveillance would you deem acceptable? And that is an honest question that we should definitely be asking because, of course, there should be limits on how long the data is retained. Just as I looked at and showed you the other sheet where on the Flock site, on the Flock website itself, when you look and saw, whenever you're talking about data retention, that basically is how long does a company keep information? And they basically tell you it's a rolling 30-day basis. So if you got recorded by a camera today, 29 days after today, that recording of you should be deleted. But if you then show up 5 days later after that, then the 35th day, your data is going to be taken off. Then it just keeps rolling over and over. It's every 30 days. And that's not just based on a calendar from the 1st to the 30th of the month. That's a rolling 30 days. If you hit one of these cameras multiple times in 30 days, it's going to keep rolling off over and over and over and over again. But this policy only governs the LPR systems provided by Flock. But as I said earlier, the most important piece of information in this documentation for Flock cameras, if any of you have ever checked it out, please do. Or if you haven't, please do. But the images, as I said earlier, the images stored in the system are collected from areas visible to the public, meaning what they see, there is no expectation of privacy. So the other documentation that I showed you with the lineup of the 4 domains, it doesn't matter. If those cameras are out there, they're going to record. But how can law enforcement build public trust while using this new technology? Number one, if these cameras are going to be put up in different neighborhoods, especially residential neighborhoods, then it is the best thing to do is the city council meetings and the city council of officials should know that this is happening. And if they know that it's happening and not telling the general public, that is a problem. But if these are in your community and you never heard it from your city officials, that's when you need to start asking questions. But overall, I definitely want you all to continue to definitely leave the comments as well, because I'm going to be continuing to monitor this as I see things come out. But technology is going to continue to move so fast. But trust takes time to build. And if communities feel left out of the conversation, then you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be surprised when frustration grows. But the real question isn't whether technology will continue to evolve, because it's going to continue to evolve regardless of what our thoughts or opinions are. But the question is whether we can build systems that improve public safety while respecting privacy and maintaining public confidence as well. So like, listen, and subscribe to the channel. DivTech 101, aka Black Mantle. Look forward to bringing more content to you all soon.